Okay, so back to our animation, and we are going to start off at the end of glycolysis. So we've got our 2-pyruvate molecules, and in the link reaction, these molecules are going to be decarboxylated, oxidized, and attached to a coenzyme. So we've got 2 carbons produced, a couple of molecules of reduced NAD, and we've got these two carbon acetyl groups attached to a coenzyme A. And if we follow one of those, the coenzyme carries the 2-carbon acetyl compound to the Krebs cycle, where it binds, where the 2-carbon compound binds with the 4-carbon oxaloacetate to produce citric acid, and the coenzyme cycles back. Then we've got a couple of oxidation and decarboxylation steps. A little bit of ATP is produced, a couple more oxidation steps, before we end up with our oxaloacetate ready to receive the 2-carbon compound from coenzyme again. Okay, and if we just sort of watch this go through, you might want to do this a couple of times because it's quite nice seeing what goes in and what goes out and when. And then back to the beginning again. So if I pause this here, you can see we've kind of got double vision going on here. So we've got coenzyme A bringing the 2-carbon compound, forming a 6-carbon citric acid, which is oxidized, decarboxylated to produce a 5-carbon compound and a molecule of reduced NAD. It's then oxidized and then decarboxylated to produce a 4-carbon compound and a molecule of reduced NAD. There's enough energy produced to give us an ATP molecule, and then we've got 2 further oxidation steps giving us some reduced FAD and 1 molecule of reduced NAD again. Okay, and the reason that you've got double vision here, remember, is because the cycle happens twice for every molecule of glucose. Okay, so by this point, when we get to this stage here, we've got no energy, well, nothing left of the glucose. The original glucose molecule that we started with has been disassembled completely, and all of the energy has been released. A little bit of it has been released in ATP along the way, okay? We've produced a little bit of ATP along the way, but that's quite an insignificant amount. Most of the energy from glucose is now in the electrons that the NAD-reduced molecules are carrying, okay? And this is why the Krebs cycle is such an important step, because it carries quite a lot. We produce quite a lot of reduced NAD. And those electrons are going to go to the electron transport chain, where the energy in those electrons will be used to phosphorylate ADP to produce ATP. Okay, so really, up until this point, the first 3 stages of respiration, it's all about the NAD molecules. It's all about getting all of that reduced NAD. Okay, so that's basically the Krebs cycle. Now, if we move on a little bit, from this point now, these reduced NAD molecules and FAD molecules are going to head to the cristae of the mitochondria, where they are going to join the electron transport chain, as I've been talking about a couple of times, and that's pretty much that's where it all happens in respiration. Okay, so let's have a look at our count, our carbon count. Okay, oh, I'm sorry, ignore this at the top because 6 does not become 3. That's what happens in the link reaction. So actually, our carbon count is 6, sort of 2 becomes 6, becomes 4, but essentially it becomes nothing. So we've got no carbons left basically at the end of the Krebs cycle, or none of our original carbons left, remember, from what we started off with glucose. So for stuff produced from 1 molecule of glucose in the Krebs cycle, we have produced 6 molecules of reduced NAD, 3 for every turn of the cycle. We've produced 2 molecules of reduced FAD, 1 for every turn of the cycle. We've got 2 oxaloacetic acids. Remember, that's the sort of the 4-carbon compound, and they remain in the Krebs cycle. So they're just constantly cycling, ready to receive the next acetyl-CoA. And we've got 2 coenzyme molecules that are produced every time, because every time we drop off that 2-carbon compound, we release a coenzyme, and that coenzyme A can go back to the link reaction and pick up another acetyl group. So we've got this constant cycling, and they're all interlinked, and they all depend upon each other, which is kind of one of the joys of biology, is just how devastatingly complicated and interrelated it is, and yet it works every second of every day of every year of your life, usually without too much intervention from anybody else. You should stop and think about that every now and again. It's amazing. Anyway, I digress. As usual, I recommend Mr. Pollock, really nice animations. Have a look at it. Have a look back at Mr. Pollock's written sheet that I gave to you. I'm also going to include in this lesson a couple of photographs that I've taken of the WJEC textbook. And I'm doing this because I'm assuming that some of you may not have it yet, but please make sure that you purchase the WJEC textbook for this year. It's really, really important. Okay, and finally, I will also be attaching a link from the Khan Academy, which those of you who've been in my lessons will have come across before. It's a slightly more in-depth, not particularly exciting, and certainly not visually exciting way of explaining respiration, but he does a really, really good job. He sort of like does it like chalk and talk. He's drawing things while he's explaining what's going on, and actually he's kind of where I go first. If I'm teaching a new topic, he's where I go to first, because for me he explains things really, really nicely. Other things that will be posted this week, although it won't be today, it will probably be tomorrow. Apologies for the delay. I will be posting a quiz on the link reaction and the Krebs cycle, and I will be posting some A-level example questions as an assignment. Please make sure that you do those questions, because the quiz is nice, easy access. The A-level questions are where I can see where the holes in your understanding really are, and then we can start to address that. Okie dokie, have a lovely week, guys, and I will speak to you again next week. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Goodbye.